everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today another episode of the social sessions, and the topic today is patterns, because many of you asked me some questions about patterns in general, about many questions. So today I'm gonna answer those questions, and to start off is a question of Mootje. What is your favorite item to crochet? Let's see if my microphone, yes, it's okay. My favorite item to crochet is probably an obvious answer for many who know my work already. I'm not the guy who crochet a lot of toys or amigurumi stuff like children's stuff and or dolls or whatsoever, because that's not my cup of tea. I sometimes do make something out of it, and I have a little, well, sometimes a butterfly or a small thing is okay, but I will never design anything out of that corner of the crochet world. So that's obviously not the answer, but well, I most like to crochet blankets for sure, because you can express yourself in a blanket in the best way possible, because you have infinite space. You have a large table to work on, like an expression. You can just use so many stitches and colors to create an universe on its own with a certain theme that it's for me it's like a color book. You can go crazy with it. And that's why I love blankets so much. And besides blanket, I really love mandalas, because I really like working in round shapes, and almost repeating geometric designs you can create into a mandala and create an almost dazzling effect which almost tucks you in. And most of the time, if you do it right, it is your piece of attention into a living room or wherever you will hang it. Like, people are directly drawn with their view to it, and I really love that you can create such simple things with those two items. But in general, yeah, sure, my specific area of crochet items is definitely home decoration, and that is wide. Like, it can come from so many, like a basket, a cushion, a pillow, well, you can name it. And sometimes I do a little step towards shawls or scarves or maybe hats. Well, so garments are also coming sometimes out of me, but it's mostly home decoration, and for sure blankets and mandalas are my favorite. So thank you for asking, Mootje, and I hope this answers your questions. Then we have a question from Mako. Are you going to make free tutorials making some of your masterpieces here on YouTube? And I find this a hard question, and it's not because you asked me it, Mako. You are for sure, you can ask it, but it's hard for me to answer it, because I have a bit of mixed feelings about this question. Because yeah, sure, free patterns, I would love to record in a video and show you some more about how it is done. And for me, it's fine if that crosses the internet in any way. But for paid patterns, which you have to purchase in one of my stores, it is different, because you can for sure make a video and then create a personal link where you can watch it without having it publicly. But it's still, in my head, it's still a bit of violating copyright things easily. What you see nowadays is that patterns are easily copied and shared between people. Like, okay, one person purchases a pattern and it is sent through many places, and which I have even I really don't care anymore. It's fine by me. I'm not gonna detect everything where there is some notice or whatever, and violation there will always be. But making it with a personal link to a YouTube video for a pattern is even harder, because at least if a pattern, written pattern, is shared in a PDF file, it's paid once for your work, but sharing a link to a video is priceless. Anyone, if you share it in a group of 100 people or with your friends, it's easily wide outspread, and well, there is no control at all. So for that reason, I don't feel like I will do this at all. But besides the whole copyright thing and whatsoever, there's another reason, because I'm left-handed and everything I record from crocheting is left-handed, so it's easily done by mirroring a video, so all you right-hand people can also watch it, and the standard crochet way is handled. But what I now hear from people around me with technique videos already is, okay, we can understand, we can see, we can show, understand what you try to show, but it still feels not natural, because it seems like you have a real weird way of crocheting, but it's just because of the mirroring that it turns out that way. So I really don't know if I'm really gonna put my focus on making videos for patterns, because, well, I'm not sure it will display the right way of crocheting, and it will get even better explaining. So I will try in the future. For now, absolutely not, because my whole schedule is full of other things. But free patterns, yes, probably yes, but all paid patterns I'm not gonna make any video records on, so don't count on it. Sorry, Marco, but thanks for asking. Then we have a question from D. What was your first pattern? And I actually shared a little about it from in the beginning episode and later on the designing episode, but it's the Lotus and Blossom mandala. It was my very first pattern I created, and it came out of nowhere. I told already it was based on a lotus flower which I saw in my lily pond and in the garden, and well, I thought it's a nice inspiration to work with. I took some balls of cotton, and in the end it was there. And it's still one of my most favorite patterns, although I'm a little insecure about it, because well, the pattern is one of my first written patterns, and I can tell it's not really perfectly written. So for sure it's understandable, but it could be better, and I will take care of that for sure in the future. But I'm still missing some time here and there. There's just 24 hours in a day. But it was Lotus and Blossom mandala, yes. So that was my first ever project, and yeah, I'm still in love with it. Yeah. Another question from Lala, nice fun name. What is your worst pattern? And you actually can ask that to a designer, because if it's correct, you don't have a worst pattern, because you won't publish it. But okay, when we talk about the worst pattern, it would probably be something like Trinity. It's a really simple hexagon pattern which I created in the very beginning of my designer career, and it has never been successful, and it wasn't really a great one. The story behind it was really great, because it had a Celtic geometric history, but it's really not really that useful, and maybe I will pick it up in the future and try to create something new from it, because I still feel there's potential in it. But if we talk about a worst pattern, it must be Trinity. So okay, I've chosen, although I'm not really a fan of telling I have worst patterns, because, well, nothing is worst. And then we have another question from Cassandra. Which is the best pattern made by another designer? And oh, that's a really hard question, because now you have to make me choose. Well, I have an answer here. For sure there are many beautiful patterns, and I have made many of others, but my most favorite is a pattern that isn't available anymore. So take note of that, it isn't out there anymore. Don't stalk the designer for it, because there is no pattern anymore. But it was the Crochet Club 2000, 12 or 13 by Jane Crawford, Janie Crow. It was the Persian, I don't remember the name fully, something like the Persian something. It had a Persian theme, and it was a crochet club. It took 6 months to create, and for me at that time it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I learned so much from it, and it's still so beautiful to see. It's a shame the pattern is not available anymore, but it was the thing with the crochet club. All members who participated did get the pattern, and after that it wouldn't be available anymore. That was the exclusivity of the crochet club, and you paid for it, and well, that's that. And it's fine, it's a choice, and it's okay. So don't make sure not to spam the designer or ask people for it, because it isn't there anymore. But for sure, check it out, Google it. And all the crochet clubs in fact are pretty beautiful designs, which are really high class designing, so it's worth a look. But no, there aren't any patterns available anymore. So that's your question. Then we have a next question from, let's see, another one from D. What is your most favorite completed pattern? And that is another question I really hate, because it's like you have 5 children and you get the question, which of the 5 is your favorite? And you can choose, obviously. And that's the same for me with my patterns. I have to choose out of almost 100 patterns, and you can't really. You have made everything you've done with love, out of your heart, with an inspiration, with a story, and picking one is really hard. But I can make a top 3 probably, and the first place would definitely go to the Seaside Serendipity blanket, and that's mainly for the reason that that blanket really holds so much detail. I have put so many hours and so much designing skills into that blanket to create 10 parts full of detail, full of little stories. It's a real unique pattern on its own. Besides that, I really love the color choices for it, so that for me is definitely a number 1. A second place for me would definitely be Vincent behind me, the mandala, because I really love the painting and I feel like this turned out so great. And a third place would be a shared one, I guess, because it's one of my first book Journey, but it's also a digital pattern I created, and it's the Subway blanket out of my book, my first book Journey, Crochet Journey, because I really love the way I use the rainbow colors. It holds 109 colors, which are blended so perfectly in that blanket, and I really love the shapes of it. But on the other hand, I also really love the Nirvana mandala, which I created, and not because it's the really hardest pattern, but because of the actually easy repetitive part in the pattern, which gives you such an relaxed feeling creating it with such a stunning effect. And yeah, I'm really proud of that. So that would be my top 3, although I could list up till 20, and yeah, in the end there are really beautiful patterns. Like there are also patterns like the Hydra blanket, which is published in the Yarn Boekazijn from Scheepjes number 7. It's one blanket I'm also very proud of, and every time I see it I'm still in love with it. But it's not my pattern anymore, it's at Scheepjes and it's published in another book, so sometimes I forget I also did those kind of things. But yeah, I can name a lot of things, but this is my answer for now. And then we have another question from Key Cataline, and this is a very specific question about the Vincent mandala, which you can see there. Many of you have probably seen it already if you follow me for a long time now. Her question is about the Vincent mandala. Inspiration is there, but how to get to the final project of creating this? Yeah. Well, I explained a little about inspiration and designing in previous episodes, and that is actually part of the question already. It explains a little, but to talk about this specific Vincent pattern, it is you have to see, and it's also what I'm going to tell is also something I did for my new second book gallery, because we are also using famous paintings by masters out of history. Doing that is something you have to do with care, because taking a painting made by a painter, a famous artist, worldwide known, is a hard thing to do, because you don't want to copy a painting into a crochet pattern, because it would feel like stealing another one's talent or creative mind, and that's something I didn't want to do. Instead of it, I started looking at the painting and took small things out of it which are really remarkable for the painting, and put that into a crochet pattern to, in the end, create another total new dimension, but still with the remarkable and small things you definitely recognize out of an original painting. And that's what I did with Vincent as well, because two things were very important. One is the blue background color, because the blue in Vincent's almond blossom is really remarkable. It's really a unique color of blue. And the second thing is, of course, branches of almond blossom. And well, with those two things I start playing, and in the end I found a draft pattern I designed in my very early days, but I didn't finish it and I wasn't really happy with it. So, and I found it back in one of my movement boxes in a notebook, and I felt like, okay, this is maybe a great start for this inspiration idea. And so I started with it, and in the colors I chose for it, and it worked. And from that moment I started building up, and I wanted some branches in, I want some almond blossoms in, I want the golden touch in it, and then you see it starts to blend in and create some kind of pattern which is actually totally different from the original painting, but in the end it's so much recognizable to the original. And that's what I think is the best thing you can do. It's you make something new, but still it is so good to recognize from an original thing you used as inspiration. And with doing that, I think you honor the artist as well, because I never would want to take things easy and copy something out of Vincent. And that's why I'm so happy with this piece, because it definitely succeeded on this one. And well, I think that's also your answer, because you really have to think about the inspiration, because you definitely have a painting as inspiration, but how to turn it into a pattern, and that's where you really have to work to find the right connections and to put things in order to make it recognizable but individual on its own. So I think that's your answer. And then we have another question from Mieke, and that's also actually a very specific pattern question. It's about the Egyptian eye throw, which is in my second book gallery, and it's based on the portrait of Adele from Gustav Klimt. And her question is, turning a Klimt painting into a pattern, well, that's a sentence, it's not a question. I don't like the painting, but the throw is gorgeous. How? Colors are, oh my god, my handwriting is so bad. Colors are one thing, but what about the rest? Now I understand the question. Well, yes, colors is probably 50% of a pattern already if you want to recreate a painting, but the rest is really up to the things you pick out of a painting like Klimt, and I can totally relate to, because my preference when it comes to art is also not abstract but more Renaissance. But I can't write a book full of 12 masterpieces only picking the things I like. You have to create a full range of different artists in different subjects of art, and yeah, well, Klimt is a more abstract way, and although I didn't like the painting that much, when starting on using it, you want to take things out of it and you start zooming in, and then you discover that the dress of Adele holds about 100 Egyptian eye motifs, which are actually perfect material to use. And for sure there is such thing as eye motif is already there in the crochet world, but it's how you turn it into something different with colors and how you use stitches, because you can also play in a motif like this which is already existing by laying some extra dimensions in it, like depthen out the eye part by using a round of back post stitches, like there is an extra line around the iris of the eye, the connection between the different eye motifs, the way of connecting them, and that all together makes a stunning piece. And yes, then it could be easily that you don't like the painting, but the throw is something you do like, and I think then you succeeded in what you try to do, because that means all parts are in a right amount of balance, and it comes to a perfect crochet project probably. So yeah, that's why I did it. But so it's not only color indeed, but it's also the things you pick out of a portrait, and it can be very small things, because in the end I could also have picked the face of Adele, but I couldn't find any remarkable details to crochet out of it. So I started looking at motifs and the use of the eye in it, and it also has a very feministic way of presenting something, which I also truly admired about the painting. So I definitely want to bring that back also in the throw. And well, yeah, that creates this piece. So I'm glad you like it, and I hope this answers your question a little. Well, these are the questions for the patterns part, and I could tell a lot more about patterns, about all of my patterns, because all of them have an own history and story on its own. But I also think a lot of it I also explained in the previous episode, so I'll leave this for now. Thank you for watching. I hope you find it interesting, and I hope you like watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Bye bye.